What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at AVAIYA is what the world needs.
Hello, AVAIYA family. I'm Andy Anderson. My partner Ike Allen and I are teachers, mentors, and the co-owners of AVAIYA University. AVAIYA is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Our fellow teachers, Joshua Sylvae, PhD, and Dr. Ian McNaughton are back with us today to talk about approaches to overcome the possible trauma of betrayal and deception. Joshua is a licensed marriage and family therapist and somatic experiencing practitioner from Oregon City, Oregon. He holds an MA in clinical psychology with an emphasis in somatic psychology and is an adjunct faculty member at Prescott College, as well as faculty member for the Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute, facilitating the SE training in multiple locations around the world. Ian is a psychotherapist, and he's been a teacher and practitioner of mind, body, and family systems psychotherapy for over 45 years now. He's an associate faculty member of City University in Vancouver and has taught at numerous universities and colleges, both undergraduate and graduate levels, in psychology and in business. And he is Dr. Peter Levine's legacy faculty at Ergos Institute for Somatic Education. Welcome back to AVAIYA, both of you.
Glad to be here. Yeah.
Always great to have you. And yeah. I'm starting to call you guys like, the dream team or something, because we tend to do this, the three of us these days, which is so much fun.
Yeah.
It's lovely. Great to get to share space with both of you.
Yeah, it's always wonderful. And so we're talking about an interesting topic today, right? Betrayal and deception. And given that humans are creatures that need a lot of interpersonal and social connection, it's just something that we crave and we need for our own survival. What does human evolution mean for people experiencing betrayal and deception? And Ian, why don't you start us off?
Well, I think there is a history throughout time of people both sort of gaslighting people, deception, and also a sense of betrayal, which, often has two sides. One person actually meant to betray a person, or they didn't, but it actually happened to have that impact. And I think one of the important things that both Joshua and I talk about is that this not only has an effect on our psyche, but it also affects our nervous systems. And we only have to see, in terms of human evolution, how people form groups to be safe, but they exclude the other group. And we see that in the wars that are going on right now, and how we all make stories up about each side, and then that a sense of betrayal with on each side, and then what actually is driving it underneath there is a whole mythos, developmental history in the individuals and the collective and their family of origin, but it has a biological driver.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yes. And how about you, Joshua? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I've always said that the human animal is the most social animal on the planet. We evolved in the context of incredibly tight, small groups of often related individuals related to each other by bonds of ceremony, marriage. There was real commitment to a shared sense of group. And imagine living your whole life within a group where everybody knows you. It would have been relatively rare to engage with strangers. Mm-hmm. And your belongingness in the group was predicated upon your responsible treatment of others. If one couldn't just burn bridges and then move to another town, or engage with people online as a sort of shadowy figure that has no real substance in the material world, there's an incredible freedom, to deceive and exploit other people that I think our ancestors would not have had. Ancestral groups, deep time ancestors, those were situations where your behavior was closely monitored by others in the group, and if you mistreated one of the group, the rest of the group was going to let you know that is not okay.
Right, right.
And they would be ready to expel you, from the group, which could have survival consequences. So I really think that as we're navigating this new context of mass society, there's not those same kinds of checks and balances that used to exist for us. And it's a novel situation for our nervous system, and I think it's having some deleterious consequences, perhaps.
Mm.
I would agree. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, very interesting to compare it to what would have happened, right, so many years ago when you would be, right, I guess, outcast from a society for a period of
Mhm.
time in order to, right, learn your lessons, so to speak, and so that, you could get back into that cohesion and be able to survive together, right, and strengthen numbers and all that. And I'm curious too about developmental trauma, right? So how might developmental trauma play into this and really, I guess, set people up to fall prey to things like deception and betrayal? And Ian, why don't you start us off with that?
Well, I think there, as depending on our early bonding attachment experience within our nuclear family, uh, we learn certain things about what's safe. We all do that. And different stages of development um, require a certain safety for us to fully embrace whatever stage we're going through, whether it's developing our needs or being able to assert our own autonomy, our own will, our own opinions. And if any one of those levels or some levels are not completed fully in a context of feeling safe, and that we still maintain, as Joshua was pointing out, this inherent biological need that we have for attachment and connection and safe harmony sufficiently that we can handle differences. So if the early developmental experiences, especially, and then the ones in school, right? Because so there's a family, family of origin, the effect through the generations of what kind of history there's been about betrayal in the family, deception in the family, that filters down into the current nuclear family. And then there's this transition into school. And people often in our society forget about the developmental impact of going from family into the social group, not just our friends on the block or on the next farm, but actually into this whole other context, depending on how we fare in that one, has a tremendous impact of how we are in the world later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that isn't really talked about that often, right? We often, yes, I think developmental trauma and we think family of origin and not as much. Yeah, what's happening in school? What's that transition for, right? A 5-6-year-old child, also, quite young usually.
Yeah.
How about you, Joshua? Any thoughts on developmental trauma and how that can affect people as it relates to betrayal and deception?
Well, I believe that as we're going through that experience as young people, we are unconsciously setting up a series of expectations about how we're going to be treated, what is fair to expect. Uh, People in the attachment theory world talk about our attachment status, whether it's secure or insecure, as rules that we carry about
Mhm.
relationships.
Mhm.
And if the expectations that I have about what kinds of treatment I'm entitled to,
Mhm.
what kinds of figures, I can make relationship with, are not supportive of us, we may unconsciously gravitate towards relational situations that rather than providing a space of safety and healing, actually might reenact earlier disappointments, where we're seeking out partners, collaborators in professional arenas that don't necessarily have our best interests at heart. And we may miss those early signals that could prepare us to recognize that somebody is not a trustworthy individual.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, not having those tools or learning that skill set in order to be able to detect that in people. And so for people watching right now who have had an experience of betrayal or deception, maybe this is an infidelity with a partner. This could be a family betrayal. This could be a financial betrayal, which is something talked about more and more these days. What kind of suggestions do you have for people who are kind of in the thick of that not fun space of how to get through it, how to heal, how to manage, I guess, that trauma so that they heal from it? Ian, why don't you start us off?
Well, I think one of the things that to keep in mind is that these experiences often leave us feeling isolated. And so it's really important to have one or two trusted advisors, friends. If it's not a therapist, that's fine, but somebody that is understands you and perhaps going to at least be supportive and hopefully help you think through what you need to do to 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 have sufficient agency to be able to take care of yourself in the situation. And I think the other part with that is to learn more skills about grounding and centering, being with yourself, connecting with nature. If you can, if you can find a tree to hug or that'll hug you back, which I've done, and to great help. And I was very surprised. That was initiated by my wife, and I couldn't believe at the time I had to believe it, but it was so surprising how it changed my energy, But I had an ally who helped me find it, right? So that I could start to self-regulate myself and not be so much in my reactive midbrain, but more in my executive functioning, to be able to start to think clearly about the situation that I'm in and not just from knee-jerk reaction, so I can get my own impulse to make wise choices.
Thank you, Ian. That was a beautiful story. I love that you mentioned the tree hugging. I get little goosebumps when I think of that because I too have hugged a tree. People might think of that as a silly thing, but absolutely there is some really beautiful soothing connection that we can experience with nature, especially if we're in a tough space, and also just pulling in that support system that you were relying on because sometimes we need that person to tell us, okay, go do this. This is going to be good for you when we're in a really rough spot.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Joshua?
Yeah, maybe just reflecting back again on our evolutionary origins. I believe that our nervous system is designed as much or more for co-regulation as it is for self-regulation.
Yeah.
And so just to give a vote for what Ian's talking about here of finding trusted individuals that we can resource with and that can support us to co-regulate. Another piece of why I think it can be hard to heal from deception and betrayal is shame. Shame is an emotion that can so complicate the movement of other emotions. So in the aftermath of something like this, we may feel incredibly sad, devastated. We may feel angered. We may feel a sense of wanting some kind of revenge. There can be all kinds of things that start to move in us, but then the thing that keeps those from being able to move through and out, to complete, to restore our full functioning is that we have a quality of shame. And that shame may prevent us from reaching out and getting that support that we really need. So if there's somebody out there who has recently experienced deception and betrayal, I want to invite you to notice what happens in your body experience as I say these simple words. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. to really be able to recognize that the locus of responsibility for this experience lies in the other, not within oneself. You
Mhm.
didn't do this to yourself. You didn't mess up. There was somebody who skillfully exploited whatever vulnerabilities you have, and created this situation that you're now having to clean up within yourself. So as much as possible to be able to access spaces where we can grieve for whatever loss might be there, where we can feel that movement of the life force that Peter Levine, the originator of somatic experiencing, he sometimes calls it healthy aggression.
Mhm.
That sense of like, like that's not okay. And
Mhm.
to be able to
Mhm.
feel into that and have a space where we get to complete those emotions, I just think of as so key.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Joshua. Thank you. When you said those words, I definitely felt very tingly and just like love. And I think that was just so important for people who are watching or listening right now for what they're going through, and just listening to that over and over again, and
Mhm.
that reminder for them, especially if they're feeling shame and maybe blaming themselves for whatever happened, which so many people do. So thank you. And so my next question for you is, first of all, when we were talking about what kinds of things we were going to discuss today, one of the terms you were talking about was completing impulses. And I don't know what that means. So first of all, what are completing impulses? And then how might completing impulses for self-protection protect us from betrayal and deception in the future? Ian, will you want to start us off there?
Sure. Well, the analogy I think about is I had a financial betrayal, which was quite significant in my life from somebody and in a business situation. And I was very bitter. So the impulse to clean that up between us was was something that was kind of frozen in me. So actually, my core impulse, life force to move forward and to work towards co-regulation and discuss, as Joshua talks about, and to be able to express my loss and to have a conversation about it was blocked. And when I realized that, oh, this is actually hurting me, right? And um, and then I realized, oh, that gave me the freedom to move, right? And it came out of a discussion with a friend. And then I realized, oh, I'm actually hurting myself, and the other person doesn't even actually know what I'm carrying. So it freed me up to have a conversation with the person who was a friend and is now. But there was a gap there while I I got stuck, and I didn't think to talk to somebody else who could help me move it. Right. So
Mm,
I think these we have these impulses towards agency, towards healthy action, to engage and see what we can discover with the other person, or to seek help. That's an impulse, right? And then if we get too isolated, we especially as Joshua said about shame, if our early developmental experience was that I'm bad, or I didn't get things right, or I was shamed in school or at home, um, not healthy shame, but shame that sort of kind of erodes the healthy sense of self, you lose that impulse to actually know what to do.
yeah, interesting. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing a little personal story there, and how that, right. So now I understand completing impulses. Got it.
Mm.
Yes, wanting to have those conversations because it's hurting you.
Yeah.
Did you want to say more about that, Ian, before we move
Well,
on?
I'm just thinking sometimes the other way of level of it is what Joshua talked about, is the healthy aggression, for instance, the sense of there's an assertion in what I'm saying, but it was blocked, right? And it's in the nervous system, but it's also in the body and gesture and completeness of my expression in the world, whatever that is. And when that, then you go into kind of a polyvagal shutdown in your system, and it actually affects your health in the long term.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people talk about, yes, how right, unforgiveness, so to speak, right, is necessarily not something that's going to be great for your future health. Even if it just means, it doesn't mean you're with that person again or whatever, but if you're not like, processing it and forgiving, within yourself, then yeah. Any thoughts on that, Joshua?
Yeah, just to maybe think a little bit about the way that our nervous system supports us to have behavioral responses. Porges, who created this polyvagal theory that Ian mentioned, he talks about the autonomic nervous system, the part of our nervous system that regulates our organs and glands and creates the level of arousal in our bodies, that the functioning of that creates neural substrates for behavior. So what's going on in terms of our bodily arousal is going to then condition what kinds of thoughts we're capable of thinking, what kinds of emotions we're capable of feeling, and what our behavior looks like. So we want, I think, to support our organism to be able to complete impulses to restore autonomic nervous system function so that we have access to our capacity to be oriented to our world and ready to spontaneously engage with it. And two of the behavioral sets that the autonomic nervous system can support is what's called immobilization, where we go into a kind of a shutdown or a freeze response, which a lot of people do when overwhelmed. And then there's mobilization responses. And sometimes as we start to access mobilization responses, active coping, being with this energy of our life force as it's allowed to move, we'll discover that maybe, in terms of, this healthy aggression concept, maybe I'm pretty pissed off about this thing that happened to me. And what I have seen over and over again as people, working with clients, people come in, they desperately want to forgive the person that has wounded them. They've been trying to talk themselves into this for years or decades and tried every strategy to get themselves to think differently about this thing. If in our work together we can help them to access and liberate that life force energy, maybe it's as simple as they get to have the experience of their body saying this to assert some kind of boundary and to really feel how I have this power in me that can assert this self-protective response, or maybe they get to say some words that maybe it wouldn't be safe or advisable to say to that individual that had actually betrayed them, but which I can complete in the safe container of the session. Sometimes it's like the completion of those impulses that may have been trapped in our physiology that really lets the whole thing start to move in a different way. And I have seen over and over again how getting to say, I hate you, as we think about that figure, or getting to imagine ourselves pushing them away from us, or some other physical response that maybe is in the body wanting to complete. On the other side of that, as they then deactivate and that energy gets to be released, they'll say, "Gosh, I guess they really were just doing the best they could, and they were damaged too. So just glad they're not going to be able to hurt me again." And it's like the forgiveness is right there on the other side of like actually getting to complete our self-protective response. So I'm a big fan of this. I really think that, sometimes the work that we do around trying to talk ourselves into feeling differently and taking the high road, it sort of pushes down something about our organismic response. This irritation, this frustration, and that sometimes accessing that can be a really profound avenue to getting back to love.
Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing, Joshua. And yeah, so many people I'm sure can relate to that trying to get beyond it, get beyond the betrayal, talk yourself out of feeling bad anymore. I felt bad for too long or whatever. And absolutely like tapping into that anger. Cause I think that's one that a lot of people tend to bypass on the journey for sure. So I think, thank you so much for sharing that. That's right. Giving permission for people like to complete that in that healthy way. So we are running low on time. So I want to make sure that we get a chance to talk about where people can learn more about you guys. Ian, I know that you have a couple books you're giving away again.
Yes.
And we're going to do a little raffle. Can you share about what your book is?
Yeah, the book is called Body, Breath, and Consciousness. It's a somatic anthology of people I've studied with, mentors, some articles of Peter Levine and some of mine and his. And so it covers everything from family systems to trauma work and developmental theory and some practices that are important for people to understand. It's about 330 pages and so forth. So I'm going to give away 2 books to people who write into you.
Okay.
All right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I know that our past winners have loved it. So thank you so much for offering that again, and we'll let the winners know. Thank you. Ian. Appreciate that. And Joshua, how can people learn more about you as well as somatic experiencing and Ergos and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I will lay that out. And then I just want to briefly say, Andy, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And we appreciate that you're out there supporting people.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Ian. You know, like as we think about deception and betrayal, I can't help but reflect on how I have myself experienced deception and betrayal, and how healing it's been to be in connection with you. This man is just a lion of integrity, and to have you as a mentor has just been such an incredible gift. So just had to say that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So let's see. My website, which I think might be linked or available down below, working on a book and various projects, online trainings and such. So feel free to check in on me there. And there's also, if people are curious about the SE professional training, if you are a helper or healer and want to integrate somatic experiencing into your process, you can learn more about that. And then there's the work of Dr. Peter Levine, the originator of somatic experiencing, and his Ergos Institute of Somatic Education that Ian and I both teach for. And I think that's everything.
Links for all of that below. And any last insights for both of you? Joshua, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, I do. I just want to name that I think we're in this interesting cultural moment where I think of it sometimes as the age of the anti-hero. Like we seem so attracted to narratives of people with bad motives, you know, and there's this kind of like celebration of, I think, what people mistakenly have decided is human nature, which is deception and betrayal, that we're these fundamentally selfish, exploitative beings that are out to get each other. You know, I think that's just not true. And so I'm just excited to hopefully participate in cultural shifts where we can get back the importance of honor and loyalty as we're interacting with each other, and that we can support each other to build this more life-affirming world that I think we all at our heart really want to see.
Amen to that. Thank you, Joshua. How about you, Ian? Any last insights?
Well, just as I listen to Joshua, I feel hopeful about the world and his clarity, which is kind of a prose in a way, yet it's very grounded about, you know, if we don't try and help each other, then we're doomed. And, you know, as a person, as a family, so many families have tough time, and as a culture. And the more times you can just thank a waitress or a serving person or a fellow, or say hello to somebody in an elevator, or smile, you're actually bringing goodness and life force and love into the world, and loving kindness. And we all have it to give, and we don't have to do very much to make somebody else just feel a little bit better in the world. And that's my practice.
Well, thank you so much, Ian. It's a beautiful practice and a great reminder for all of us. And thank you both for being here with us today. Always great to see you, and AVAIYA students who are watching or listening, for showing up for yourself, for being here, willing to talk about these conversations, absorb these conversations, and go on your journey. So thank you so much for everything, and we'll see you all again very soon. Take care, everybody.
All right. Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this last class with Joshua Sylvae and Dr. Ian McNaughton. They were back with us today to talk about approaches to overcome the possible trauma of betrayal and deception. I absolutely love Joshua and Ian. I think they make such a great team and do such a good job of really putting such energy into these conversations, and love and acceptance and inspiration and hope and all of those things. If you've seen them on other AVAIYA University masterclasses, I know you know what I'm talking about, right? They've been featured in many different things, in topics of codependency and relationships, and today here with betrayal and deception. And I think that one thing to take home with you is, no matter what you're personally going through right now when it comes to betrayal and deception, right? Taking a look at also just like the bigger picture, and taking a look at humanity, and taking a look at the way we used to live, right? The way we used to live, and how maybe it's easier, so to speak, to betray and deceive today, because we don't seem to have the values maybe that we used to for our own survival. And I think really just honing in on our need for that interpersonal connection, honing in on our need for being social, for being part of a community, and remembering that, because I think in this day and age, it seems to be so easy to forget that and just go off on our own. And when we really truly do need each other, and we need to heal, and we need to come together. And I think it's just so important to remember that. So a very holistic overview today of this topic. I hope that you found it helpful in your own healing journey, and we will see you again soon. Take care.
AVAIYA has changed my life.
AVAIYA has made me the woman I am today.
AVAIYA is my home.
AVAIYA is personal freedom.
AVAIYA is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about AVAIYA.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, AVAIYA, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at AVAIYA is what the world needs.